Okay, so the big question is I want to start by explaining what a tech stack is. And I don't want to get super deep because I want you as a non tech founder to be able to understand, have conversations. But honestly, this is a really big question for the development team and your CTO. So, what is it? Well, we're going to start at the top. You're going to have some sort of front end framework. Okay, so let's dig in. As a non tech founder, I want to explain to you so you can have conversations with your development team because a lot of this you don't have to be an expert on. You just have to be able to have a good conversation, understand what's going on with your product. So, what is a tech stack? Well, it's a whole bunch of different layers of what comprises your application. So, let's start from the top. At the very top, we have your front end. So, this could be any kind of application. This is what the user is going to see. Now, it could be something that's native to front end like React or Angular, or it could be a server-side language that's rendered in the front. Then the next is going to be your back-end framework. Now, these are definitely types of languages that are different than front-end languages. Does it really matter? Not too much for your perspective, but I want you to know I'm going to list off some popular ones here that we can use for a back-end framework. So we got Java. Python's probably the most popular. We can do Node. We can do C Sharp. There's a few others. And what I want you to do is be aware of what you're choosing because that's a big issue. You want something specifically that's popular. And why would that be? Well, one, if it's something that's popular and your dev team's building it, there's most likely somebody out there who's already built a solution like that, and they can find those examples of code online. Now, another big thing is, and people hate to admit this, what if you start working with one tech side, maybe a development agency, a fractional CTO, or maybe you hire your friend and you start with them? 6 months down the line, things change. You get somebody new in. And if you didn't use a popular tech stack or you didn't use a good tech stack, one of the first things they might want to do is say, hey, the stuff you have kind of sucks. I want to start from scratch and rewrite. So it's very important for you to be able to do that. Now, next, behind the back end, we have your database. Now, again, a big time decision is going to be your database. Now, there's a lot of good ones out there. I'd say off the top of my head, the two most popular ones is Postgres is very popular right now. It's affordable. It's hosted in most cloud providers, which we're going to get to in a second. And the other one that I personally enjoy a lot, and just because I've used it a lot, is MySQL. MySQL has been very nice. I used that when I was in school, but that one's losing a little bit of favor. And another one that I really enjoy is Microsoft SQL Server. Now, don't roll your eyes at me with Microsoft. Another thing that you want to choose, and we'll get to that in a second, when you pick a tech stack, you also just want to go into that environment. And especially for your MVP, just layer into that. Just really get into it. And let's give an example. I was talking with a principal engineer the other day, and we talked about all the different languages we chose and the deployments and whatnot. And he said, you know what works is from top to bottom when you just pick one ecosystem and you work with it. And let me give you an example. We were talking about deployment systems. So we said, well, if you use this deployment system, in our case, Azure DevOps, well, it tends to work better with Azure, which are both Microsoft products. And you know what it really works well with? C Sharp, which is another Microsoft product. And it really works well with SQL Server, which is a Microsoft product. And so from an MVP level, I highly suggest that whatever you do when you talk to your tech person, you just pick one ecosystem to work in. You don't want to make it complicated. You don't want to make it harder than it has to be. You don't want to have problems where you're mixing and matching and pulling from stuff. I've had problems before where I've tried to mix and match things a lot. An example, and I don't want to get too technical on this, is one place I worked at, we were trying to use Azure DevOps, which is really good, to deploy into AWS, which works, right? It works. However, each one of those cloud providers, and let's get to that in a second, have their own system or tools that they like to deploy to them. Now, a tech person might say, you can make any of them go, and you can. But for your MVP, for getting started, you want to be able to do it as easy as possible, as quick as possible. Now let's get to the last piece of the puzzle. So we have our front end, our back end, our database. Time for our cloud provider. This is a big decision. So I've made a whole bunch of other videos on this. But let's go through the basics. There are three main cloud providers that you want to choose from. There is GCP, which means Google Cloud Provider. There is one called Azure, which is a Microsoft product. And then there's AWS, which comes from Amazon. All three are perfectly fine. Like I said, I think depending on your tech stack, especially in the beginning, unless you have a super preference, I would just stick with that. Couple caveats. Azure is very nice. I enjoy it. It works really well with Microsoft products. That's what my team usually uses. So for us, it's a breeze. AWS is by far and away the most popular one. So if you look at market share, they have a huge percentage of the market share. But you'll also find that your bill is probably going to be the highest with AWS. So you have to be very vigilant to make sure that you don't spend too much money. Now, Google Cloud Provider is really good, particularly if you want to use Firestore or Firebase. If you're doing any kind of mobile application with those tools, it integrates seamlessly. And plus, I've used Google Cloud Provider a lot and I enjoy it. So all three are good, but you just have to plan for which one you want to use. So let's wrap this up right now. What is my advice? My advice to you is to spend a little bit of time. I'll leave some links down in the description. Popular tech stacks to use. Most importantly, think it through, because the decision could be one of those that you maybe I talked about this a little bit, but make sure to use a popular one, because I could easily see you go talk to a developer and your friend's going to build it for you and he goes, boy, I would really like to use Elixir. That's a great language. Let's write it in Elixir. Cool. However, if that person leaves you and someone else comes in, or you look to hire for that position, or you want to bring a team on, you've really limited yourself, because I'll be honest, there's not as many Elixir experts as there are Python experts. And last but not least, use them all together. Make it as easy as possible for yourself. There's no reason to make it hard, because what do we always talk about for an MVP? You want to get it out fast, you want to get it out cheap, and most likely once you get it out there, you're going to iterate and change it a lot. So from the beginning, make the best decision you can. If you're a little clueless, always feel free to reach out to me, McClureDevSolutions.com. Contact me on there. I'd love to sit down and just have a Zoom call with you. We could talk it through and help you pick out a good tech stack. Have a great day.